My YouTube channel, make sure you like and subscribe or Emery is going to come to your house and yell at you. And no one wants that. It sounds scary. Hopefully your day of service meeting class thing went well yesterday. And then you'll meet with them again next Friday for the actual thingy from there. Donating shoes, again, you have through Thursday if you're wanting to donate shoes. Just got to bring them in. And then I'm not banning food yet. Wednesday at the end of the day and yesterday at the end of the day, 2 days in a row, I have found multiple piles of crushed and smashed food into my carpet. And so I'm just saying, moving forward from now to the end of the year, if there is smashed food in my carpet, I just take it away from all of my classes for a week. So if food drops, y'all need to be picking it up because there's little goldfish and Cheez-Its and things. I think the main issue is it falls, and then you guys roll a chair over it, and it goes, and it's gone, and then that becomes issue. Right next to Mr. Shelley, I have a little push vacuum thing here, so if need be, and you find out that you've rolled over one, you're more than welcome to do a little vacuuming thing at the end of class, if that'll solve the problem, or let me vacuum it up, but then no one gets to have it for a week. But as of now, I have not banned food. I wanted to give you warning instead of just going straight to being grump grump mean. As much fun as grump grump mean is.
Why did you make a frog out of your book?
This is the same that I told you.
Okay. Not a frog.
Feel the same way. The extra credit. You will turn it in Monday if you decided to do it. It is the extra credit, extra B points. Make sure that you go through and read all the directions. If you did not pick one up yesterday and you want one, they're on my desk and you're more than welcome to grab one at the end of class and then you're good to go from there. Other than that, and then also, yes, I've had multiple kids I have caught sharing answers. It's cheating. If you share answers, it's just flat out cheating. Then I have to give you a referral. And I don't want to do that. So don't make me be grump at kids. So don't, for some reason, kids seem to be confused at just sliding your paper over and letting someone else write them down. That's like the definition of what cheating is. So just giving you a heads up, don't make me be mean to you. Hi, little fingers, what's up?
So, like, why do they call it cheating if it's like for extra credit?
Well, because it's also for extra B points too, and if you don't do the work, it's still cheating. Even if it's not for a grade, but you're getting extra credits, that technically means you're raising your grade, or do it to help you out. If you have someone else do your Simpson sheet lines, that's also cheating and get you a referral, which I've had kids do before. Because,
how do you know?
well, one, kids rat each other out all the time.
A lot of kids have big mouths.
And some kids have big mouths, and sometimes I can just tell because of the handwriting, and then who knows what.
Yeah, my handwriting's pretty slave vodka.
Hi, Gia, what's up?
For the extra credit, is it the extra credit for the quiz? Like,
then
I need that.
I just add it straight into that quiz grade.
Yeah, maybe you should.
That was my goal with that one. Hi, Supercorn.
What if we're on the Discord's call and start sharing answers? Would that be
Supercorn, I apologize for calling on you. Alright, so then Monday is when we get to the whole final part of the book. We're going to talk about book stuff today. Did you have any luck? Was it there?
Yeah.
Yay, I'm happy for you.
What was it?
It was a thing. So Monday we will have final test over a whole book. Today we'll go through and talk about the last 3 chapters and things that happened in them.
Whoa.
Here's my goal. For those of you who read book, there are some confusing things that happen with Ponyboy and stuff like that, and I want to try and explain them to try and help you be unconfused. Those of you who did not read end of book, or any of the book past chapter 5, I want to at least have you have some idea of what happened in there, because I think it's a somewhat fun story, and I was trying to be nice to you. So that's my goal with today. So with this class, you guys, we got past Rumble, didn't we?
Yeah.
We got to them having the Rumble. Who starts it for the greasers?
Research.
And who starts it for the socias?
Paul.
Nicely done. And we have them two fighting. Who is the guy that shows up late and comes running in?
Dolly.
There you go. Who is Ponyboy's normal fight buddy?
Johnny.
Who's his fight buddy this time?
Dolly.
Alright. Let's see. What happens to Ponyboy during the fight?
He gets hurt.
How
He
so?
gets a concussion.
How did you know about this?
Because Cole told me that you're making fun of me.
I was not making fun of you. I was referencing you. I'm assuming that's why you're wearing the sunglasses and not just because you think you're really cool. So
Well, I am really cool.
Well, obviously. So I was assuming it was a concussion thing, so I was making a connection for that. Do not make fun of you. I do that to your face, not behind your back. And then who ends up winning? That's where the greasers win. Why do they go to the hospital?
Because of Johnny.
Because of Johnny. And so they go there to go see Johnny because apparently he's doing that whole dying
did they
thing.
not get arrested for killing that dude?
I mean, that was a long time ago. That was like 3 chapters ago. Don't you yell at me because of that! Then, ooh, what does it mean when Johnny?
Stay happy.
Yeah, there you go. And we're going to get to that letter that Johnny writes Ponyboy at the end where he talks about staying gold again. And
He dies.
the death of Johnny. And then, did we get to Ponyboy getting a ride in the car with you guys?
Yeah.
You know, really bad.
Then we
He
got the white
gets
car.
kidnapped.
You just yelling candy? Oh yeah. There we go. So then, we had just started to get to the scene with Dally. So how did Ponyboy get to the hospital? With Dally. And then Dally then runs out of hospital
He
and then
crashes
leaves Ponyboy there. Dally then gets home because of creepy guy in the van. And then that's when Ponyboy gets home and then Dally... Ooh. When Dally calls, what is it Dally had done?
He robbed the grocery store.
He had robbed a grocery store. Where does he want to meet them?
At the
Close, not the park.
At the thing lot.
The empty lot. And so that's when he was like, hey, meet me at the empty lot. And they all come running. So, ooh, what time of day does this happen?
Night.
Nighttime. So, when Dally goes running into this empty lot, he could stop anywhere in this empty lot. But there's one specific location he goes to. Did you catch where he
The
runs to?
street light.
Nicely done, showing here. He runs directly under the street light for his plan to work, and Dally does have a plan. He wants to make sure he is directly underneath the street light when he stops. What has Dally been carrying with him as a weapon?
A heater.
What do we know about this heater?
It's not loaded.
It's not loaded. That is not loaded. And of course, since he just robbed a place, that is where you're going to have all the policemen who show up. Now, they also have guns that they point at Dally. But at this point, all of the greasers are there watching, and Dally knows they're all watching. When Dally pulls out the gun, he then pretends to shoot them. And then the police are much better pretenders than he is.
They pop him.
Because when they pretend, it's real. And that's what ends up killing Dally. Now, with that, did Dally know his gun was unloaded?
Yes.
Absolutely. So his death is planned. It is what he wanted to have happen. For Dally at this point, it's Dally. He's a boy, he's a teenager, and he's Dally. He's not good at emotions, and he's really sad. Why is Dally sad?
Because Johnny died.
Yeah. And so this is where he wants to commit suicide because of his sadness. He has, because what was Dally's gold?
Johnny.
Yeah, his gold is gone. He's like, I have no more reason to live. But Dally, for him to die, he has to die the coolest way possible for him. What is the coolest way for him to die? So he figures this way it shows up in the paper that he robbed a store and he got shot by the police. Because remember, he was upset when he was in the paper as a hero for rescuing people. That made him mad. He's like, I'm a straight up thug, yo. So now when he gets in the paper, it's for doing bad things, and that's the way he wants to go out.
So only Johnny and Dally have died?
And Bob.
Who's Bob? Oh, right.
You know, the part that in theory you read with that Soch guy. Now, the question is, if Dally knows he's planning on dying and the gun is not loaded, why call your friends to watch all of this happen?
So
So you have what? Not bad. Not quite witnesses, but you're on the right track. This is Dally's way of saying goodbye. Again, he's not good at emotions. And ooh, do his friends know the gun is not loaded?
Yes.
Absolutely. So when he pulls that gun out, that's his way of saying to them, you know why I'm doing this. And so when he points it at the cops, it's his way of saying goodbye to his friends. It's not a good way of doing it. It's not a healthy way of doing it, but for him, this is the only way he knows how to actually say goodbye to them. So he says goodbye to his friends in that way.
Bye-bye.
So now we have Johnny, and now we have poor Dally. So as soon as Dally gets shot, do you remember what happened to Ponyboy like right after that?
he started crying.
He
He went to the
Not yet. This
He
is where
passed out.
Yeah, that part's coming up next. He passed. This is where all of a sudden Dally gets shot, and Ponyboy goes, and falls down, then ends up going to the hospital. Now, with this thing, with Ponyboy passing out and going to the hospital, for one, remember he got kicked in the head, which gave him a...
Concussion.
And so along with that, do you guys know how much time has passed from that opening scene till now? Yeah, 7 days. All of this has happened in 7 days. To give you a quick recap, this is what's happened to Ponyboy in the course of 7 days. Walking home from a movie theater by himself, he gets jumped by a bunch of Socs who hold a knife to his throat and threaten to kill him. He then gets saved by his friends. The next night, he goes to the movies, and he gets to flirt and hang out with some really hot girls. And then on the walk home with them, he then gets almost jumped and attacked by their boyfriends again, walks home from there and ends up falling asleep in a lot, goes home late, gets slapped by his older brother, runs away from home, goes out to the park in the middle of the night. In the middle of the night, gets jumped and attacked by Socs again, gets drowned to the point where he's almost dead, wakes up next to a dead body, finds out his best friend killed that dead body, runs away, gets on a train for the very first time, goes to a church out in the middle of nowhere. In this church, lives on cigarettes and bologna for the next 3 to 4 days, gets a chance to go to Dairy Queen. At Dairy Queen, has a whole bunch of food, goes back to the church. At the church, it's on fire, runs into the burning church, saves children by throwing them out windows, has the church collapse on top of him and end up crushing his best friend, then goes to a rumble the very next night. In that rumble the next night, gets kicked in the head, gets a concussion. From there, goes to the hospital. On the way, gets pulled over by the police. At the hospital, watches his best friend die in front of him. Stay cold. Gets picked up by a random stranger in a van who takes him home, goes inside, gets a phone call from another friend, goes out and watches that friend get shot to death in front of him. That's a lot for 7 days. I think for most of you, any one of those things would make your Snapchat story. And he had all of that happen in 7 days. For him, when kids go through trauma, it's too much. His brain literally just turns off. His brain goes,
Brain dead?
no. And he just like, and just falls down. And his brain's like, you know what? Nothing bad can happen to you if you're not conscious. So he just passes out. And that's why he ends up going to the hospital, because his brain is trying to recover. Ooh, so that's this whole sickness that he has while he's there. When he was sick, he wakes up and talks to Soda. And do you remember what his concern was about Derry when he wakes up?
Where is that?
No, but a good guess. Yeah?
If he said you have to say something to him in the hospital while he's
You're getting closer to it. Ben?
Oh!
If he called the dairy.
That's the thing. When he wakes up and Soda's there, he's like, did I ever actually ask for Derry? And Soda's like, yeah, you asked for me and Derry and your parents and like everybody. So here's my question. Why was he worried that he did not ask about Derry? Do you know what he was worried about?
Because he didn't remember asking Derry.
That's part of it. He was unconscious. Remember the beginning of the book. What was his relationship like with Derry?
Bad.
What happened after the church?
They were always
Good.
So what's he worried about?
I don't know.
Is he still gonna be his brother?
That he's worried about whether or not they have a good relationship still, because he figures if he was knocked out and never asked for Derry, that's going to make Derry upset, and now they go back to hating each other. So he was worried that he never asked about Derry that whole time, but apparently he did. Even unconscious, Ponyboy tries to be a good person. Ooh, and the gift that Johnny
Gone with the Wind.
which is
Book the Wind.
the book Gone with the Wind, which has the note in it we're going to get in a moment. And then this is the Gone with the Wind book that he gets. And then, now we get to chapter 11. And in here, so we have the, who's Randy?
His friend.
Whose friend?
Bob's friend.
Bob's friend. Earlier, Randy and Ponyboy had a meeting. What did Randy tell him at that meeting?
He didn't want to fight. He was running away.
He was running away because he did not want to have to fight this whole thing. Now, this is after the whole fight. He comes back to visit Ponyboy again. And when Randy comes in to talk to him, they're talking about everything that's happened. This connects to the shirt I wore yesterday. You remember my shirt I wore yesterday?
Stay gold.
It says, I killed Bob. Because, who is it that killed Bob?
Johnny.
But who does Ponyboy think killed Bob? So here's what's going on with Ponyboy when he gets into the fight with Randy, where he keeps telling Randy, "I killed Bob," and Randy's like, "No, I was busy drowning you at the time. You couldn't kill Bob." Ponyboy wants to find his happy place, but his happy place means Johnny has to be alive. But if Johnny's alive and Bob is dead, who else was there that could have killed Bob? Himself. Do you know how screwed up you have to be if your toll-free call, I don't care about, how screwed up you have to be if your happy place is you killing somebody? If you're like, "Oh, I wish my life was better. My life would be better if I was a murderer." That's what Ponyboy's in the middle of doing, is that he wishes he was the murderer because then Johnny wouldn't be, and then Johnny would still be alive. Problem is, Ponyboy didn't kill Bob. Johnny did. So that's when he gets into the argument with Randy, and he's like, "I killed Bob." Oh, then we get to go to the court scene. With the court. Why does Ponyboy think he's going to court?
Because he thinks that he killed him.
Yeah, he thinks he's on murder for killing Bob. Did you catch why he's actually in court? Because it has nothing to do with Bob. Perfect. And so the idea of whether or not Derry is still a good person that he's supposed to be with or not. So that's, I think I have a, there we go. Whether or not he's still supposed to have Derry as the person he's supposed to have as his guardian. Because remember, he only gets to stay with Derry as long as what does not happen? And of course, I think getting a murder rap usually counts as getting in trouble. So when he goes to court, this is where then the police and the court is trying to decide if Derry's good. Ponyboy's confused. And this is where in that court scene, the judge would be like, "Do you think your brother Daryl is doing a good job with you?" And he was like, "Derry's great, but I killed Bob." The judge's like, "What now?" He's like, "Well, what about Soda Pop?" He's like, "Soda Pop is great, but I killed Bob." And he keeps trying to tell the judge, "I killed Bob." The judge's like, "You didn't." As far as the court is concerned, who killed Bob? What happened to Johnny?
Died.
Yeah, case closed. They're like, "We have no need to prosecute this kid because the guy that died, the kid who killed him, is already dead. We just have to make sure that you're living in a good home." And that's where it turns out that Derry's actually doing a pretty good job. All of the Socias actually become decent people, and they go and testify like, "Yep, we were jerks, we were being bullies and awful. Most of that is because of us. This kid is living a hard enough life as is." Ooh. Do you remember the beginning of the book? What were Pony's grades like? Yeah, he talked about the fact he has a bunch of A's and B's, and he was like in advanced classes. Post the whole Rumble and Dally dying, what are his grades like? So here is the thing it took me a while to understand as a teacher. Kids go through trauma. And a lot of times you guys have things that happen outside of school in your home lives that are awful and suck. And when that happens, kids don't care about school. Because why would you? If your home life is awful, as is here, then you stop caring about things like getting good grades and caring about things like your friends. That's what happened to Ponyboy. His best friend died. He watched someone else get shot. That messes with a person's head. So Ponyboy is trying to do his best to be like the one person he knows who doesn't care about anybody. Who's the person who doesn't care about anybody? And so he's trying to be like Dally as much as he can. Dally doesn't care about anybody. He's like, if you don't care about people, you can't get hurt. So Ponyboy is trying to not care about anybody. It's just easier said than done to not care about people. Ooh, I want to read you a scene. On page 171, this is when Ponyboy and Steve and I think 2-Bit go out to a restaurant, and Ponyboy is sitting outside, and Socias show up and try to jump him. And there's a scene with him and this Coke bottle. Beginning of the book, 2-Bit breaks a pop bottle when the Socias show up and hands it to him. What was Ponyboy's reaction?
I don't want to fight.
Yeah, he's like, he tells Cherry, he's like, I could never use this. He's like, I can't stab somebody with a pop bottle. That's crazy. He's like, that's not who I am. Keep that in mind. Page 171.
I know what happened.
I'm going to go at the bottom of page 170, but see if you pick up on what happens now. I was sitting on the fender of Steve's car, smoking and drinking a Pepsi, while he and 2-Bit were inside talking to some girls, when a car drove up and 3 Socias got out. And I just sat there and looked at them and took another swallow of the Pepsi. I wasn't scared. It was the oddest feeling in the world. I didn't feel anything. Scared, mad, anything. Just zero. "You're the guy that killed Bob Sheldon," one of them said. "And he was a friend of ours. We don't like nobody killing our friends, especially greasers." Big deal. I busted the end off my bottle and held on to the neck and tossed away my cigarette. "You get back in your car, or you're going to get split." They looked kind of surprised, and one of them backed up. "I mean it." I hopped off the car. "I've had about all I can take from you guys." I started toward them, holding the bottle the way Tim Shepard holds a switchblade, out and away from myself, in a loose but firm hold. I guess they knew I meant business because they got into their car and drove off. "You really would have used that bottle, wouldn't you?" Two-Bit had been watching from the store doorway. "I mean, Steve and me were backing you, but I guess we didn't need to. You'd have really cut them up, huh?" "I guess so," I said with a sigh. "So what's different?"
He was gonna use a bottle now without being scared.
Oh yeah, was that what you were gonna say? What were you gonna say? Yeah, now he's all hard and trying to be mean, and now he's like, "I'll kill a fool. I don't care at all." But deep down, Pony Boy is still Pony Boy. I'm going to read the next couple paragraphs, and I'm going to see if you can see what's changed. "I guess so," I said with a sigh. I didn't see what Two-Bit was sweating about. Anyone else could have done the same thing, and Two-Bit wouldn't have thought about it twice. "Pony Boy, man, listen. You can't get tough. You're not like the rest of us. Don't try to be." "What's the matter, Two-Bit? I knew as well as he did that if you got tough, you didn't get hurt. You get smart, and nothing can touch you." "Wait, what in the world are you doing?" Two-Bit's voice broke into my thoughts. I looked up at him. "I'm picking up the glass?" He stared at me for a second and then grinned. "You little son of a gun," he said in a relieved voice. I didn't know what he was talking about, so I just went on picking up the glass from the bottle and putting it into a trash can. I mean, I didn't want anyone to get a flat tire. Even though he's trying to be hard and tough, what did we find out?
He picks up the glass.
In his heart, even though he's trying to be a baddie, in his heart, he's still a softie. And even though he's trying to be all mean and hard, Pony Boy at his heart is still a good person. And he's like, "I'll kill a fool, but I don't want you to get a flat tire. That'd be awful." And he goes and picks up all the little pieces of glass. Then, to that, where he is broken on the inside, there is good in it, which we're going to get to. Oh. So there's a fight between Soda and Derry and Pony where they all sort of throw down and run away because they're all stressed and going through trauma. But then they mention something about Sandy. Who was Sandy again?
Soda's girlfriend.
Not Cherry's friend. That was Marcia.
Girlfriend.
Whose girlfriend? Soda's girlfriend. What did we find out about her?
She got pregnant and she had to go away.
Down to Florida. Now, page 174, we find out there's more to the story. It wasn't just that she got pregnant. I'm going to read it, and I'm going to see if Aaliyah can tell me what it is. So I'm going to read the section where this is where they now just got done with their fight, and we find out a little bit more about what happened with Sandy. Derry picked up the envelope that Soda had dropped. "It's the letter he wrote Sandy," Derry said without expression. "It was returned, unopened." "Yeah?" Hold on one second. So that was what had been bugging Soda all afternoon. And I hadn't even bothered to find out. While I was thinking about it, I realized that I never paid much attention to Soda's problems. Derry and I just took it for granted that he didn't have any. When Sandy went to Florida, it wasn't Soda, Pony Boy. He told me he loved her. But I guess she didn't love him like he thought she did because it wasn't him. You don't have to draw me a picture. He wanted to marry her anyway. She just left. Derry was looking at me with a puzzled expression. "Why didn't he tell you? I didn't think he'd tell Steve or Two-Bit. I thought he told you everything." So what is it we find out about Sandy?
That he doesn't love him anymore.
No, not that.
His child.
There you go. It was not his child. It was apparently not only was she pregnant, but she was also cheating on him at the same time. And Soda, being a good person, still offered to spend the rest of his life with her. But instead, Sandy just sort of threw a hand in his face and was like, And so apparently Sandy was not nearly as good of a person as we thought she was, because, And then Johnny's letter to Pony Boy. This is when he picks up the Gone with the Wind book, and inside the book is the last letter that Ponyboy writes. Let's see. There we go. So this is the part leading up to the letter. You know a guy like Johnny a long time, and I mean really know him, you don't get used to the idea that he's dead overnight. Johnny was something more than a buddy to all of us. I guess he listened to, I guess he had listened to more beefs and more problems from more people than any of us. Sorry, hiccup, stop it. A guy that'll really listen to you. I mean, like, listen and care about what you're saying? That's something rare. And I couldn't forget him telling me that he hadn't done enough. Hadn't even been out of our neighborhood all his life. And then, it was too late. I took a deep breath and opened up the book. A slip of paper fell out on the floor, and I picked it up. Ponyboy, I asked the nurse to give you this book so you could finish it. Oh, the letter was in Johnny's handwriting. I went on reading, almost hearing Johnny's quiet voice. The doctor came in a while ago, but I knew anyway. I keep getting tireder and tireder. Listen, I don't mind dying now. It's worth it. It was worth saving those kids. Their lives are worth more than mine. They have more to live for. Some of their parents came by to thank me, and I know it was worth it. Tell Dally it's worth it. I'm just going to miss you guys. I've been thinking about it. And that poem, that guy that wrote it, he meant you're gold when you're a kid, like green. When you're a kid, everything's new. It's like dawn. It's just when you get used to everything that it's day, like the way you dig sunsets, Pony. That's gold. Keep that way. It's a good way to be. I want you to tell Dally to look at one. He'll probably think you're crazy, but ask for me, I don't think he's ever really seen a sunset. And don't be so bugged over being a greaser. You still have a lot of time to make yourself be what you want. There's still lots of good in the world. Tell Dally, I don't think he knows. Your buddy, Johnny. And then the last thing to get to, aside from Shar, throwing that away before I have to strangle him with it,
Oh,
is...
is that a threat?
No, it's a promise. Oh, you're walking over there and throwing it away.
I'm putting that in the past.
As long as you put it down, don't touch it anymore. Hurt the child.
Is he putting
Hey,
a
you
Pop-Tart
Shar.
wrapper?
So Pony's English teacher doesn't want him to fail, even though he's trying his hardest to do it. And says, you can, in order to not fail, I'm going to have you write me an essay, and then you're good to go. You remember what the essay was supposed to be about?
About his, like, them past 4 days or something?
Close.
Dally.
The original essay topic was you just have to write about something that's important to you.
Oh.
And then we're going to get to what he writes, but that's what he was trying to figure out. Like, what am I supposed to write about? He's like, nothing's important to me.
But now that he got that paper, he finally has something.
Yeah. So now he's figured out what's important to him.
Speed it up, speed it up, speed it up.
Let's see. I picked up the phone book and I called my English teacher. Hey, Mr. Syme, this is Ponyboy. That theme, how long can it be? Why, should not be any less than 5 pages. He sounded a little surprised. I'd forgotten it was late at night. Yeah, but can it be longer? Certainly, Ponyboy. It can be as long as you want it. Thanks, I said and hung up. I sat down and picked up my pen and thought for a minute, remembering a handsome, dark boy with a reckless grin and a hot temper, a tough, tow-headed boy with a cigarette in his mouth and a bitter grin on his hard face, remembering, and this time it didn't hurt, a quiet, defeated-looking 16-year-old whose hair needed cutting badly, who had black eyes with a frightened expression to them. 1 week had taken all 3 of them, and I decided I could tell people, beginning with my English teacher. I wondered for a long time how to start that essay, how to start writing about something that was important to me. I finally began like this. When I stepped out into the bright sunlight from the darkness of the movie house, I had only 2 things on my mind, Paul Newman and a ride home. Where have we heard that before? The very beginning of the book. So what does Ponyboy write for his essay? This book becomes Ponyboy's essay. So apparently instead of 5 pages, he wrote 180 pages. Ooh, by the way, when he was doing that last part, do you know who these people are? And it says, I was remembering a handsome, dark boy with a reckless grin and a hot temper. Not Dally.
Johnny.
No.
So,
Who's the first person to die?
Harry. I mean,
Johnny.
That one's Bob, the one that has the hot temper who kept getting into fights. And then he says, a tough blonde-headed boy with a cigarette in his mouth and a bitter grin.
Tim Dally.
That's Dally. And then the quiet, defeated-looking 16-year-old,
Johnny.
hair needed cutting, that would be Johnny. With this, I've had kids ask if it's based on a true story, and the answer is actually kind of. The author, Susan Hinton, was 16 years old when she wrote this book. She wrote it when she was in high school after getting into a fight with her English teacher because she thought that the books that he was making them read were really bad. And so he said, if you think the books I choose are so bad, why don't you write one instead? So she did. And she wrote a book about her friends. The high school she was going to at the time had a group of really rich kids and really poor kids, and she was friends with both of them. And at the time at her school, they kept getting into fights and things kept getting worse and worse. And she kept telling them, if you continue along this path, someone's going to get killed. But no one would pay any attention to her. So she decided to write a book where her friends ended up killing each other in a fight as her way of trying to get them to stop fighting with each other. So she worked in most of her friends into this book. And she worked herself into the book. She is one of the main characters.
Cherry.
She is Cherry. Because in the book, Cherry is the one that becomes friends with all the greasers, but was also friends with the socias. And that's how she was at her high school. And so it's that same idea where she wrote herself into it. So the death is not necessarily real, but everything else in the book, she says, is pretty much based on things that happened to her while she was in school at the time.
Her friends actually died.
And then from there we get into it. Before I get to my next questions with this, for you guys, questions I have would be, no shame. How many of you guys read book like all the way through beginning to end and stuff like that? So my question for those of you who did, is this a book you think I should keep doing?
Yes.
So does it hurt or bother you that it takes place a long time ago?
Cameron's just gonna say yes.
I know. Remember she asked, why do I keep losing points? And she was like, I've spent so many of them where, and this is where I keep, this the whole time I've been talking, so she keeps talking back over there. And then it's shocker. So, alright. So, book is one I should keep doing, is one that's worth reading. For me, I don't want to teach a book that kids don't want to read. And so that's why I asked, and I'm afraid, that's why I always ask at the end, is this a book that's still worth doing? Because if it gets to a point where kids don't like it anymore, I'll switch to something else. My other question is how I teach it a way that works for you.
No.
Yes.
What you should not have done it this late in the school year.
I think you should have started early.
How so?
I
Okay.
think you should
So
just
you could have read it all to us.
Yeah,
Like, it
because
would
now I
make
feel
more
like you
sense.
don't have time to.
So one part of it is, I will never ever read the whole book to you. Because I need you guys to be able to read it. So part of my thinking is towards the end of the year, I know you guys don't like doing a whole lot of work. And so that's why I tried to find a book I thought was interesting for those kids who would, because I have to make you guys read on your own. That was my thinking. But I will absolutely take counter arguments. Gia?
When you like testing and stuff, like I don't know, but like a lot of stress is like put on, and like I forget like all of the stuff you like read about. So like when we're testing, like I'm not thinking about reading Outsiders, and when we had to read after testing, like I didn't read.
And that's part of the issue is my bosses above me tell me I have to have you reading a book during I-Learn time. So like, I know you say you don't want to, but then my people who say I get fired if I don't say I have to have you reading a book during that time. So that's why I try to choose this one. Given, I feel the same way as you, but I don't want to get fired.
Can we just
so
do like short
that's where it sort of goes into
Yeah,
it.
do like short stories during this.
I can't. I have to do short stories at the beginning of the year. Again, that's not my choice. I'm told I have to. So a lot of things, I'm not disagreeing with you. These aren't things I get to choose. So these are the things I'm told I have to do. And so there's a lot of times teachers don't always get choices in things. Benner?
Honestly, I think you should do Outsiders, like where the earlier, and then have like Greek mythology like last, cause like I thought that was pretty
Yeah,
fun.
or it was like fun.
It is
That'd be fun for the
easy.
end of the year.
It's pretty
Or
easy.
you could do the second book during Island.
And you
Yeah, the Shadow Club during Island.
Yeah, you should have done because that one was easier to understand. You could have done the second book to Outside.
What was the
I
Shadow
don't know.
Club?
I think you could have done the sequel to
Cause the
Outside.
outsiders, I feel
We
like
do that next week.
No, but you could have done that during testing time, so that way it wouldn't have been such a big and it's shorter.
in the outsiders.
It is shorter, but I mean, so is Outsiders hard to read?
Yes. I mean,
No.
no.
It was
No,
like
but
it's
it's
like boring at the beginning, so
I
it's hard
agree.
to understand.
So at what point does it? So that's what I try to figure out. So and I agree. That's why I make sure I read all of chapter 1 because I think it's like the most boring until you start getting into it. That's why I try to get you to that. I try to read with you as much as possible to try to get past those boring parts because I feel the same way. Exposition, beginning, boring part, introducing the characters, and I try to get you to the. I think it gets. Tell me if you disagree. It gets better when they get to the movie theater and you get to like the Soshas and all of them. And then, but that's at the chapter 3 and no, beginning of chapter 4 is when that happens. And I try to get you as close as I can, but I agree. Bob dying is definitely like your first big exciting part.
I also think it'd be like better to get like invested with your class earlier.
How so? Like invested in the book or invested like me with my
Yeah,
students?
it's just like you and your students.
Like in Shadow Club, we always talked about like what was happening in the book.
Yeah, it
like,
made it a lot more
since
easier to
our
understand.
classes were a lot shorter, like now I feel like we haven't been doing that, and it's like not helping understand.
So-
Like today was like the most helpful day for outsiders.
Okay.
People at home.
So then next week when we do the next one, you want more days where I can spend more time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Reading
that's what I
or
wanna know.
talking about what we're supposed to do, like, without being like rushed and like a
Okay. And I agree. I hate all of this testing you're doing and all these short class periods. I think they're trash, but I don't get a choice. But that's why I'm trying to find those things that balance. But all right. So then next week as we get into this other book, I will try to do that a bit more. Into that talking
Another
this.
book?
Yeah, we
You know
read
you
the
are in
sequel.
English, right?
Yeah, we're doing this.
We have to read the sequel.
Uh-huh.
another book.
Why can't we just do all the testing in just like 1 week?
I mean, yeah.
I've wondered the same
I
thing.
would so much rather do that.
I would too. I
And
don't
then like
know.
one like I don't think we need 2 things for English and 2 things for math.
Maybe because the math test took you all like 15 minutes.
Yeah, like
Well,
the
it
math
took me
test,
about like 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah,
So like most of the kids took like 15 minutes.
Like the one that was 5 questions.
Yeah, that's usually the one that goes a little bit faster and all those things from there.
Oh, I was happy about that.
I will tell you with the book next week, it takes place 2 years after The Outsiders ends. It does follow some different characters. Ponyboy shows up as a friend, but he's not one of the main ones. The Shepherd Gang shows up again, and it's got some little bits of crossovers that go between them. I like the second book better myself because I think it connects to kids' lives more. The book we get into next week is a bit more adulty. It deals with what do you do when you're a teenager and your friends start going down the path of drugs. And so that's what it starts getting into because I know I have students who do drugs this year and I have a lot of 8th graders who have gone down that path. And it's going to lead us into discussions about life and stuff like that. And so the book we get into next week hits kind of hard in that area because it treats it like Outsiders. It treats them like real kids and what do you do when that happens and everything kind of sucks and your world falls apart. All right, see you Monday.